fine soldier, a warm-hearted, humorous, high-spirited man, he had in him that rich strain of adventurous restlessness which Sebastian inherited as a writer. Last winter at a literary lunch in South Kensington, a celebrated old critic, whose brilliancy and learning I've always admired, was heard to remark as the talk fluttered around Sebastian Knight's untimely death, "Poor Knight! He really had two periods. The first, a dull man writing broken English. The second, a broken man writing dull English." A nasty dig. Nasty in more ways than one, for it is far too easy to talk of a dead author behind the backs of his books. I should like to believe that the jester feels no pride in recalling this particular jest, the more so as he showed far greater restraint when reviewing Sebastian Knight's work a few years ago. Nevertheless, it must be admitted that in a certain sense Sebastian's life, though far from being dull, lacked the terrific vigor of his literary style. Every time I opened one of his books, I seemed to see my father dashing into the room, that special way he had of flinging open the door and immediately pouncing upon a thing he wanted or a creature he loved. My first impression of him is always a breathless one of suddenly soaring up from the floor, one half of my toy train still dangling from my hand and the crystal pendants of the chandelier dangerously near my head. He would bump me down as suddenly as he had snatched me up, as suddenly as Sebastian's prose sweeps the reader off his feet, to let him drop with a shock into the gleeful bathos of the next wild paragraph. Also, some of my father's favorite quips seem to have broken into fantastic flower in such typical Knight stories as Albinos in Black or The Funny Mountain. His best one, perhaps, that beautifully queer tale which always makes me think of a child laughing in its sleep. It was abroad, in Italy as far as I know, that my father, then a young guardsman on leave, met Virginia Knight. Their first meeting was connected with a fox hunt in Rome, in the early 90s, but whether this was mentioned by my mother or whether I subconsciously recall seeing some dim snapshot in a family album, I cannot say. He wooed her long. She was the daughter of Edward Knight, a gentleman of means. This is all I know of him, but from the fact that my grandmother, an austere and willful woman, I remember her fan, her mittens, her cold white fingers, was emphatically opposed to their marriage, and would repeat the legend of her objections even after my father had been married again. I am inclined to deduce that the Knight family, whatever it was, did not quite reach the standard, whatever that standard might have been, which was required by the red heels of the old regime in Russia. I'm not sure either whether my father's first marriage did not clash somehow with the traditions of his regiment. Anyway, his real military success only began with the Japanese War, which was after his wife had left him. I was still a child when I lost my father, and it was very much later in 1922, a few months before my mother's last and fatal operation, that she told me several things which she thought I should know. My father's first marriage had not been happy. A strange woman, a restless, reckless being, but not my father's kind of restlessness. His was a constant quest which changed its object only after having attained it. Hers was a half-hearted pursuit, capricious and rambling, now swerving wide off the mark, now forgetting it midway, as one forgets one's umbrella in a taxicab. She was fond of my father after a fashion, a fitful fashion to say the least, and when one day it occurred to her that she might be in love with another, whose name my father never learnt from her lips, she left husband and child as suddenly as a raindrop starts to slide tipwards down a syringa leaf. That upward jerk of the forsaken leaf, which had been heavy with its bright burden, must have caused my father fierce pain, and I do not like to dwell in my mind upon that day in a Paris hotel, with Sebastian aged about 4, poorly attended by a puzzled nurse, and my father locked up in his room. That special kind of hotel room which is so perfectly fit for the staging of the worst tragedies, a dead burnished clock, the waxed mustache of 10 minutes to 2. Under its glass dome on an evil mantelpiece, the French window with its fuddled fly between muslin and pane, and a sample of the hotel's letter paper on the well-used blotting pad. This is a quotation from Albinos in Black, textually in no way connected with that special disaster, but retaining the distant memory of a child's fretfulness on a bleak